the school websites are awful. Like, they're very difficult to navigate. They're very difficult to find information on. They send you to all these third parties. You have to have like 16 apps. It's very confusing. And so I think media companies can play like a really like nice utility role by using like the text and the video and all these things to help people sort of navigate all that stuff.
Welcome to Keep It Local, a podcast of the Local Media Association. The Local Media Association is intensely focused on helping local media companies discover new and sustainable business models. Welcome to Keep It Local. My name is Ryan Welton for Local Media Association, and I'm delighted to be joined today by David Arkin of David Arkin Consulting. I've gotten the chance to know David over the past couple of years, and I would defy you to find somebody more on top of digital content in the journalism space than David. This episode of Keep It Local is going to be a little bit different, though, because we're going to talk about two specific things that may impact your newsrooms. A promotion strategy that worked for David, and also back to school strategies that could work for every newsroom. But David, before we begin, tell the viewers, I know you, but tell the viewers about yourself and about David Arkin Consulting and a little about your origin story.
Well, thanks for having me on, Ryan. I appreciate the opportunity here. I'm going to start on the story. I came up in the newsroom. I was editor of a variety of newspapers across the country, and I ended up getting an opportunity in 2007 to come over to Gatehouse Media. It was pretty young and new at that point. It had about 50 or 75 newspapers, and I ended up working there for about a decade and became the head of news for Gatehouse. And it went from those 50 papers to 500 or 600 newspapers, and I learned a lot about scale and working with people and really kind of managing through convincing, which has helped me a lot in the consulting work that I'm doing. From there, I popped over to a variety of different roles. I actually worked at the Local Media Association for a little while in content, ended up working in Houston at the NBC TV station, leading digital there, and ended up launching my own site with a friend of mine. About 6 months or a year or so into COVID, we saw a lot of people moving to Texas and saw an opportunity to create a website called Checkout DFW, Dallas Fort Worth. And people were really looking for solutions on how do you pick a community, how do you pick a realtor, how do you sign your kids up for after school sports. And we saw it as an opportunity to create a useful product that we thought we could monetize through branded content. That worked very well. And we ended up we're actually looking for funding to kind of take it to another location, and ended up running into somebody who we knew in the market who was interested and ended up buying it. And my wife was then like, well, what are you going to do now? And so I thought I had a big enough network and knew enough about a little bit of everything to be able to go into consulting. So I reached out to a variety of people and just sort of asked them. I said, hey, if I was to do consulting with you or other friends in media who you sort of know, like, what do you think they need? And like, hands down, they all told me the same thing. They're like, we don't need more PowerPoints and big presentations and fancy decks. We need ideas and strategy, but we really need help getting stuff done. And so that's all right. And then kind of got that. I was like, like the balance of these things of just like telling people what they should do versus like actually helping them do it. I mean, they really are two different skill sets and two different things. And so that's really sort of how we sort of approach the work that we do. Our slogan is we do work with you and for you. And so I think it's really sort of helped us along the way to be more hands-on than not hands-on. So we've been doing this for almost, it'll be 3 years in October. And we have a team of writers and managers that sort of help us do everything from branded content to SEO audits to fractional digital services to social media creation and newsletter evaluations for people. So that's a little bit about kind of who we are. The sidebar to that is we launched a site a year ago in Houston called H-Town Dads. I'm a dad of 3 kids, and so it's been fun to be able to sort of do that site, which I think we'll probably end up kind of talking about here.
That is the segue into the question that I want to talk to you about. And we're going to talk about back to school strategies in just a minute. And by the way, I should note, with Checkout DFW, that's where I first met you, David. And I met you and Jed. And you were creating useful content. We're going to talk about this in a second. Connecting users with useful content, helpful content, way before that became a thing. And it is now. But first, let's talk about H-Town Dads and this promotion that you had targeting football-loving fathers. I think it had to do with the Houston Texans. Could you tell us about that promotion and what made it so effective?
Yeah, so the site was the site launched last mid-October, end of October. And, any new site needs emails. and we were doing some things to kind of acquire it. But the Texans at the time were having a decent year. They weren't like killing it, but they were having a decent year. And the Ravens were too. And there was a game on Christmas Day coming up. And we didn't even know at the time, but Beyonce ended up like performing at halftime on that and ended up being streamed on Netflix. It was a huge big deal. So we ended up getting tickets to that game and decided to do a contest to have people basically register to receive our email, and they would kind of go into the raffle to win tickets to that game. I think it was just the right time. I think it was like both the teams were hot. It came out that Beyonce was going to be performing there. The Netflix thing was like a kind of connection. And the whole idea of the site is basically to help dads figure out like how to do stuff with their kids, how to like take advantage of things to do in Houston, how to like, become better fathers. And like these sites are out there for moms like over and over and over again. And like, that's awesome. I love that. We actually work with a lot of parenting publications, but they're really like locally, there aren't lots of solutions for dads. And so we thought that this contest was a great way to like capture the essence of that. And it worked really well. We ended up, getting several hundred entries. And the thing that was most important to me in those entries was that we're able to segment that audience to take a look at how those emails were comparing to the emails that we were getting through Facebook and others. And the engagement rate was just like huge. And just like the open rate just like went up by about 15 to 20% as soon as we got those emails. And I just looked the other day and we can sort of see that segment is still engaged today. And so we've done other contests from that. We did one for Astros tickets. We did one for our Houston Cougars basketball tickets. All those teams were actually doing well. I think that's a big part of this. Like the team has to be doing well to make the contest work, but they've all been really effective. And so, but the Texans one was hands down probably times three, performed better than better than anything else. It's interesting because like you think about Texas and football and all that, and the Texans are a big deal here, but the Astros are a bigger deal here. And so it was surprising to me. And I think it might have been time of the year. We did like Astros tickets giveaway maybe like a month into the season. I think if the Astros continue to do well, we may think about something in the fall, like in September or something like that, heading into the playoffs. And I think that like a lot of these things are like the right time. And I don't think the Astros one was at the right time where the Texans one was. So I think really thinking about that probably really, really matters to people. It's sort of like your team is like struggling in the middle of the college football season. And do you do like a giveaway? Probably not. It's not good. There's no momentum, but there was momentum on that. And I think there would be momentum if we thought about doing something, in the fall with the Astros.
I don't think I mentioned it in the lead into the question, but this promotion earned H-Town Dads an honor as part of the Digital Innovation Awards from Local Media Association. So it certainly caught our attention. And NFL is king. It doesn't surprise me at all. I actually remember the Texans-Ravens game from Christmas. I think my wife and I were in an airport somewhere watching it, but not a surprise. Football is a great segue for back to school. I'm thinking about high school football, college football, the NFL. I'm pumped. And you, David, specialize in many things, but you really specialize in drawing attention to back to school strategies for newsrooms and how important it is. Why is back to school such an opportunity for local newsrooms?
Yeah, well, I think I think to define it, like there's things that are available to everybody, like information, and there's like local information. And I think for years, a lot of media companies would do like, the backpacks, what's the best backpack to get and back to school shopping and school supply, that sort of stuff. And I think like that has transitioned into more like local information of what is actually happening like in schools and what you need to know as a parent. I just think because like the content is so applicable and you use that term useful to describe the checkout DFW, it's so useful to people because they can, apply it to their lives. I think that's what matters. I was thinking about this. When I was at Gatehouse, I had this executive one time use a term to me and he said, we need to not just cover like the school board and football. We need to cover the school within the school. And basically what he meant was all the activities that the kids are involved in, like you got to figure out how to like pull that out. And it really resonated. And I'm like, yeah, like how many kids are not involved in sport? It's the majority of like, if you're at a decent sized school, it's the majority of the students. Like they're in the choirs, they're in the journalism classes, they're in yearbook, they're in DECA, they're in all these other things, And so how do you sort of like capture that and preview that and help people know like how they get involved in clubs? I remember when our oldest is going to her junior year of high school, and I remember going into her freshman year, I was like, how do you get in clubs? Like, how do you actually do that? And so, like, I think a lot of these things are like I think about them like, what is changing? Like, if you're thinking about what you should do, like, what is changing this year in your schools? Are cell phone sort of bills or laws go in place? What's sort of happening with, kind of like textbook changes, like all those things that might be like new this year. Like, those are great things to round up. I want to hear a lot of people say, and I'm sure you've run into this, Ryan. Like, we did that store, we've done that. Great, but, like, now is the right time to remind people of all those things. It's like re-aggregating your information, all over again. So I think that's, like, a really, like, useful, thing for, people to think about, like, on one end. And the other end is, like, then so there's a client of ours, we did this, like, package, and it was this 10 things to know, but it was also the 10 things that parents, need to use to make their school, experience positive for their kid. And that's like, how do I find bus schedules? How do I find the school calendar? How do I find to sign my kid up for like, clubs or those after school activities? Like all those sort of things that are hard. I mean, the school websites are awful. Like they're very difficult to navigate. They're very difficult to find information on. They send you to all these third parties. You have to have like 16 apps. It's very confusing. And so I think media companies can play like a really like nice utility role by using like the text and the video and all these things to help people sort of navigate all that stuff. So I think that's sort of why like I think the back to school stuff is so important for people.
The search for that information is vexing for parents for sure. But I will tell you, the task for a digital newsroom might feel a little overwhelming to start. You said a lot there.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of multi-formatted content. I learned that from you. And a listicle. So are there, to make this podcast really super useful in 2025, are there two or three things that if you were developing a checklist, what are three or four things that a newsroom can take away and say, you need to have this, and this on your site relative to back to school this year?
Yeah, I'd say the 10 thing story on, or whatever number is, on the changes basically that like, happen. I think you could even put like change if there's any changes for like teachers this year, or if there's been any policy change, like all those things that people need to be aware of. I would say that would be like a really good thing to do. The other thing would be school calendars. And I want to talk about this for a second. I'm a huge believer in this, and we work with lots of clients on this, and the results are crazy like every single time. So I know this can be like overwhelming based on the number of school districts you might have. So like start with the big ones if you kind of like have a lot of school districts, but go and write a story about your school calendar. You probably reported it during like a school board meeting, but it probably had a lot of other things going on. So create a story about your school calendar and write a few paragraphs, explain how if there's a committee involved in it, whatever, however it played out. And then like write out all the dates, bullet by bullet by bullet on the in-service dates and spring break and all that stuff. And the link to the calendar, maybe put a screenshot or PDF of the calendar. That's a good thing to do. But then what I would do, and this is where I'm seeing the value, is then you go and create stories throughout the year on when those specific dates are the people are looking for. When is winter break? When is spring break? When is the last day of school? It is crazy that people are actually like searching. You would think that they would like search for the calendar and then they would go find it. That's not how people, or we're seeing, that's not how people are searching. They're actually searching for that information, and nobody has that content out there right now. And so like you can win that like SEO war. And why I find it valuable is like, yes, it's like easy. It's not like the highest like level journalism content, obviously, but it's useful and you're being helpful for people and you're making it easier for them to find the information. Like say where the source came from, link to the calendar on the site and all the right things there. But I think it's like a huge opportunity. And what I would do with that, then I would layer in the other things that parents might be looking for throughout the year. So one of the things I think about then is like zoning calendars. So our zoning sites to help figure out like I live in this neighborhood. What does it mean where my kid's going to go to elementary, middle, and high school, and how could that potentially like change? Like that's a really useful thing, and or helping people figure out how they sign their kid up and register them for school. So like there's like pages to kind of push people to. So like I would definitely say school calendars, but then I would say maybe there's like some other utility content that potentially could kind of like sit underneath that bucket. The third thing that I would mention would be on school profiles. So, and again, you look at that and you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm in a million people in my city. How am I going to go profile, 500 schools? You got to start somewhere. And so the idea that I see people doing with this is that they write a little history about the school, but then they go get Department of Education data and basically build some pretty simple tables that can showcase like how that school performed most recently on those tests. So you could do this like with all the elementary schools in like your community. But I like this school by school approach because one, the idea then is like, so let's say that you had, I know this is a lot, but let's say you had 20 elementary schools. Okay. Well, spend 20 weeks, one a week over 20 weeks to go write all those like profiles up. It's not a huge lift. You just need to go out and get the information and then do an overall story on like, hey, here is how every school, every elementary school performed in our city. And then you've linked up to, I mean, the SEO for it is like, I know a lot of questions in SEO right now, but that will still work. And I think it's a really useful resource for people. But it's one way to get there. Like you don't have to think about back to school, like what can I only do in August, but what could you start and how could it kind of flow over, kind of several months there. So those are the things that I would think about.
Well, and I think about supply and demand. You're creating supply because there is demand. And you mentioned SEO, and we talk a lot about SEO and AI's impact on SEO in terms of how content is packaged. You're creating content that's useful. But for newsrooms, could AI also be a tool to help them get through the grind of doing this?
I think AI can go out and find a lot of this information. I think like when you think about the school calendars or even the data, I mean, one thing that you could do, go out and get the data from the Department of Education. I wouldn't let AI go do that. I would probably go get it, and then I would use AI to build those charts for myself. Like, I don't think you manually need to go. Then obviously you need to check the chart to the original data, but it'd be a really efficient way of being able to like do that. Cause that's where like newsrooms, I think, get stuck on things. It's like, well, how am I gonna like, how do I have time to go into the Google Sheet or go into the tool over here and build this? And so I think utilizing it from that perspective, it's been interesting. We recently did some testing where we have like, this is another way you could do this is build a template, like build a Canva template, upload it into an AI tool, give the data that you want it created and ask the AI to actually create the graphic based on the template you've given it. And with a prompt or two, it's getting really close to being able to do that. So that is a really efficient use of AI, for something like that.
Okay, this conversation is coming full circle. I want to tie this into potential for sustainability, for revenue production. How could a back to school content strategy be monetized? Is it maybe through a promotion?
Yeah, so I think there's probably a few things you could do. One is, a lot of news organizations still have back to school special sections. So a lot of these things could like sit into that. Or you could think about people who aren't doing special sections. Like, is there an e-edition guide that could be kind of like created for something like this, like a 12-page guide? And there's like one sponsor that's basically sponsoring it, or you drop in basically ads, through something like that. So that would be like a logical place to start for something like this. I'm seeing a lot of quizzes and a lot of photo call outs as sponsorship opportunities as well. So like the back to school, all sorts of things like parents sharing their back to school photos from when they were kids, or back to school photos from like day one. You have a sponsor, and there's like a people get to vote on their favorite, kind of like back to school, photo, or it's like or it's a raffle sort of like situation. So I think those are really good opportunities. I think that if you think about the things that you might do though throughout the year, that might be like the landing spots for people. So like if you do have school calendars becomes a thing, or the school profiles become a thing, or the athletes of the week, the students of the week, that all can kind of like have sponsors. Like TV stations have done a pretty good job with this sort of stuff over the years where, they'll do the athlete of the week. They'll like create a really good flow with it. On Saturday or Sunday, they'll put the call out to say, hey, here's the top 5 to vote for, go vote for them. It generates a bunch of like traffic and interest. They go ahead and like kind of select it, go out and do a little story on the person and profile them, and then you announce the winner, and then you kind of like start the flow all over again. Like that is a really good flow for that kind of thing. You don't have to be in TV necessarily to do that. They just have more video capabilities sometimes and have a segment for it and all, the whole 9 yards there. So those are really good. And those are places that I would, kind of think about starting.
That sounds fantastic. And is like you noted, it is an all year thing. You set it up right now, but there are opportunities all throughout the school year. David Arkin with David Arkin Consulting. I want to first refer folks back to H-Town Dads. Whether you're in Southeast Texas or you just want to see how a site like this could work, go visit that site, one of our Digital Innovation Award winners for this past year, and then David Arkin Consulting. Tell folks how they can find out more about you and about your consultancy.
Yeah, so it's davidarkinconsulting.com. It's pretty easy to find me on the internet these days. But go there. All details about all of our programs and our services are there. People can reach me directly just at david@davidarkinconsulting.com. They can kind of get me there at any time. They can find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So you can kind of find me there. And there's a lot of great content. We have a weekly newsletter too that we send out every Friday that has a lot of practical ideas, and a lot of these things that we're talking about are there. And we love the chance to talk with people about how we can help them.
Thank you so much for your time, David. For David, my name is Ryan Welton for Local Media Association. This is Keep It Local. This has been Keep It Local, a podcast of the Local Media Association. If you got value out of today's podcast, why not give it a review wherever you heard it? And share it with a fellow journalist or an entire newsroom. Until next time, for Keep It Local, this is Ryan with the Local Media Association.